Today I wanted to talk about one of the philosophies seen within the TV show The Untamed, and specifically within the main character, Wuxian. Disclaimer, I will definitely be pronouncing people's names wrong, and I'm really sorry about that. And also, this video will contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen the show, watch it before. If you don't care, just there will be definite plot spoilers within this. And so, for just a short summary of the show, The Untamed follows Wei Wuxian, and him being reincarnated into the body of Mo Shanyu. And like the first few episodes follow the first few days of reincarnation. About episodes 2 through 33 are the entirety of like his first life from his teenage years to his death, and then his second life follows him like avenging Mo Shanyu and doing his like tasks. I personally interpreted Wei Wuxian's character as someone who follows Gillian's ethics of care. Now, if you're seeing this and you're not my philosophy teacher, you probably don't know what this means. But it's pretty simple. So, Gillian's ethics of care simply emphasizes rational responsibility and empathy over an abstract principle of justice and strict rules. So, it prioritizes relationships and empathy and responsibility for others' well-being. Some examples of this, like Wei Wuxian's relationships are always seen as something that's very important to him. My first example of this is in his first life. He runs into the Jin clan, and they've like rented out this entire hotel, but they can't, there's nowhere else for him and his brother and his sister to stay. And so he goes and he tries, because they get kicked out of this hotel, he goes back in and he tries to rearrange a room and tries to argue with the Jin clan just to make his brother and sister feel more comfortable, even though they've both explained that like, oh, it's fine, it'll be okay. This is a pretty loose example, but I think it shows how much he cares for his brother and sister and their comfort for just this one night. Another example of this is him protecting the Lan juniors and Jinling, despite not really having a relationship with the juniors and Jinling not knowing who he is. He is aware that they don't know who he is and probably wouldn't appreciate or want his help if they knew that he was Wei Wuxian and not Mo Shanyu. But despite all of that, he puts himself at risk for these for these children, despite them not knowing who he is. And especially with the fairy statue, like he doesn't have the same powers as the same abilities that he used to. And knowing that, he still puts himself at risk, hoping, and puts these other people before himself. And when it comes to his first life, you see him put the Wen clan ahead of his own reputation because he knows that he's created this relationship with Wenning and Wenqing, and he knows that their reputation doesn't apply to all of these people, and so he sacrifices a lot of his own reputation for their well-being. One of his biggest shows of this sort of care for other people ahead of himself is him giving Jiangcheng his golden core. So Jiangcheng he loses his golden core to a guy called Core. He like has a core crushing arm, and his which the golden core like is what lets them like have these different cultivation abilities. Him having a golden core was very important to him and how it was cultivated, and it didn't kill Jiangcheng, but it really not having one really set him back in cultivation. He would never be able to rise to the level that he was at before or anywhere near where Wei Wuxian was. He would just be this average person. And for Jiangcheng, that was almost as bad as dying. And Wei Wuxian gave up his golden core without telling Jin Cheng, solely for the purpose of making his life better and allowing him to follow the path that he had always wanted since he was a child. Wei Wuxian gives up his golden core and doesn't expect any sort of thanks or recognition, which we can see when he tells Wenning and Wenqing that they should never tell Jiang Cheng. And he's even upset with Wenning a little bit for telling Jiang Cheng in his second life. And this action eventually is what leads him into doing demonic cultivation and ruining his entire reputation and separating himself from his brother, from Jiancheng, who doesn't care for it, just seems to lose a lot of respect for him for going to demonic cultivation and never knowing why. Another example of this is we see Wei Wuxian attempt to protect Lan Zhan's reputation the most throughout the majority of the show with his second life. We see, and even through Wei Wuxian's first life, we see how important Lan Zhan's reputation is to him. He doesn't want to be seen as someone who is reckless. He cares a lot about how he cares a lot about how his clan and himself are represented. One of the more blatant examples of this is when they're at this heroes conference. Jing Wangyao discovers that Wei Wuxian and Mo Shanyu, Wei Wuxian is Mo Shanyu and the reincarnated thing. He sends all these guards after him and says that everybody should kill Wei Wuxian, kill him, he's back. And Lan Zhan is there standing next to him while he basically kind of announces that he is reincarnated. And Wei Wuxian tells Lan Zhan, he's like, you don't have, I can just say that, we can just go with the fact that, you tricked me. Or not, you tricked me. I tricked you. And that you didn't know all this time and you've been tricked. But Lan Zhan disagrees and blatantly is like, yeah, no. I knew it was you and everyone. I'm going to let people know that. But I think this is another example of him giving up some of his reputation and knowing it's like him giving up any more of goodwill that he has, or good reputation that he has, for the sake of protecting Lan Zhan, because he knows how important Lan Zhan's reputation is to him. And what I think is his second biggest sacrifice he does a lot of self-sacrifice, which is never really asked or expected of him, but he always tends to give up a lot of himself for other people's well-being. And another one of his biggest, other than giving up his golden core, is him dying in his first life. And while it appears in the show that Jing Cheng stabs him while Lan Zhan is trying to pull him back up, we later see in a flashback that Wei Wuxian more shakes off Lan Zhan's hand and falls to his death willingly. He also jumps off a cliff at first. He tries to kill himself, but then Lan Zhan catches him and he shakes him off. Because we see with the Nightless City Massacre, I can't remember what it's called, sorry. He indirectly causes Jin Xishuan and Jiang Yan Li's death, and he feels very bad about this. He didn't like Jin Xishuan a lot, but he was married to Jiang Yan Li, and that's his sister. She's important to him. She died because of something that he kind of started, and Wei Wuxian knows that the only way for everyone else in this world, in this little cultivation world, the only way for them to live happily and move on with their lives is for him to die. I interpreted Wei Wuxian's character with the ethics of care, because everything he does, everything a lot of his actions, most of his decisions are for the well-being of other people. If that inherently makes it better for him, then great, but he does a lot of self-sacrifice with no expectation of a return on it. Like, he never expects big celebrations for his name to be put on these things. Of course, Wei Wuxian isn't a perfect example of Gillian's ethics of care, but I would argue that he's very realistic in the sense of how he puts others before himself. It never goes, very rarely does it go the way that he expects. Like him giving Jen Cheng his golden core, he doesn't expect to have to go to demonic cultivation and for Jen Cheng to just give up on him and for all of these bad things to happen afterwards. All he sees is in the present, this is going to help this person, and so he does it. But yeah, thank you for watching. If you're my philosophy teacher, I hope this was fine. It's probably gonna take forever to edit, but yeah. If you're seeing this because it's posted publicly, I'm very sorry. And if you watched this far, why? Bye bye.